Hello and welcome to Lawyerish, a podcast for the people. Lawyerish is a safe space to learn, grow, inspire, and be inspired. Come along and ride on this fantastic voyage. Let us go be great together. I'm J Wallace Esq, and I'll be your captain. It's a whole vibe, and I sure am glad you're here. Lawyerish is brought to you by Apex, where aptitude meets excellence, and we're powered by the Green Law Firm, your one-stop shop for everything real estate in Tennessee and Mississippi. Our voyage vibe is brought to us by Lunas Nova. It's by Raed. Shout out to the Memphis Music Bank for this rhyme. Appreciate that. It's a different one today. We got an exciting show. Glad to be in the mix and back in the chair with you. I appreciate you. Let's get into the show. We've got an exciting one. We'll be right back. Duly noted. All right, we're back. It's now time for Duly Noted. So lots going on in the world. I could talk about a lot today. This week, we've just wrapped up the Democratic National Convention. Vice President Kamala Harris has accepted the nomination in Chicago. And President Trump is, well, he's reacting to that. It's going to be an interesting campaign. The stage is set. And we've got about 70 some odd days before Election Day. So we're really actually looking forward to the debate. I believe that's happening on September 10th. So we'll see what happens with that. I won't go into too much of that. Everybody's sort of watching. And I think probably the big news on that is Beyonce was slated to be, allegedly slated to be at the DNC convention to close out the convention. And that did not happen. So somebody got it wrong. Particularly at TMZ, who's really kind of been known for getting it right. They got it wrong this time. I think we all do, but they definitely got it wrong this time, and the people are upset. But I just wanted to mention that. I think that's something that's exciting, and obviously the lay of the land is set for November. It's going to be an interesting couple of months here, folks. We're in for a wild ride, and looking forward to see how things shake out. Of course, we'll be here talking about it and tracking the results and all of the happenings. So stay tuned, and obviously feel free to chat with us about it. Majorly, though, I want to talk about what's happening in Washington, D.C., particularly in Ward 8. My Councilmember Trayon White, unfortunately, got arrested. There was a whole warrant, and he was arrested on bribery charges. And I am flabbergasted. He is my council member in Ward 8, that's Southeast Washington, D.C., a man of the people, and real one with the people, a real D.C. native, and has been someone who's been involved and engaged in the community for many years. And he's somebody who I thought was really for the people, and it turns out, and I want to reiterate or underline the fact that he's innocent until proven guilty. But it looks like, the allegations, we'll just say the allegations against him are that he was accepting bribes for contracts. And for agency, for his efforts in putting pressure on agencies to enter into some of these contracts, particularly those regarding violence interruption and violence prevention programs. And it does not look good for him. I got to tell you that. There are photos in the complaint against him. And he was, the photos, the ones I've seen are photos of him taking money and putting it into his jacket pocket. And I got to tell you, that is, his attorneys are going to have a tough time battling that allegation or those allegations. And I really kind of feel for him because he's a good guy and a friend of mine. And I had the opportunity to work alongside him when I was working on council staff. And as I said, as I mentioned, he is my council member for my ward. And so I have voted for him many times in the past. And I really thought he was somebody who really could not be beaten. And that still may be the case. No, in DC. But I didn't think he even really could be beaten because he's so in tune with the people. It's not uncommon to see him walking the streets or riding around and eating in the ward and being at ward specific events and generally representing our ward well. And so it's certainly very disappointing for these allegations to be lodged or lobbied against him. And boy, I don't know. All I can say is I hope that justice is served. I wish him well, no matter how it all turns out. I know him to be a good and caring person, and sometimes it's hard to come across in politics. But as we often say, and is often said, no one is above the law, and so we've got to follow the law no matter what. So anyway, wishing him well. We're going to keep an eye on that, but that's certainly something that's happening and worthy of some discussion here on this show as we get into some of the facts and some of his whatever his defense to all these allegations are going to be down the line. I will give Council Member White a little bit of unsolicited advice. I get his newsletters as I am a member. I am a resident in his ward. And unfortunately, due to all this mess, his office canceled a backpack drive, a back to school backpack drive. And I got to tell you, I was really disappointed to see that as well, right? If you're going to maintain the office, those kids are still going back to school despite these allegations against you. And you got to keep the pedal to the metal and continue to serve the people. Or you need to move on, right? Bow out gracefully and let somebody else do the work. But I've got full faith and confidence in him for now. And as I mentioned, he's innocent until proven guilty. But in the meantime, while you're doing this work, while you're still in the office, you need to do the work. And so don't shy away from tough situations or tough questions out in the public. Yeah, you got to answer for these allegations, and you've got to answer to your constituents like myself. But in the meantime, if you're going to sit in the office, you still got to do the work, sir. So I encourage you to stay the course or get out of the way. That's duly noted. We'll be right back. All right, friends, we're back, and it's now time for Lawyerish. I am super excited to have on the show today my good friend and colleague and classmate, Mr. Jordan McIntyre. He is a trial attorney at a civil litigation firm in Maryland. We went to law school together. He's a good friend. He's had lots of clerkships, and he's my workout partner sometimes, and also just a stand-up guy who I've had the opportunity to get to know over the years, and I'm super excited to be able to chat with him on this show today. Jordan, welcome to Lawyers. So glad to have you.
Brandon, how you doing, man? Great to be here.
Yes, and I thank you for making the time. I know you were in court today. You're in transit now, as you got so much going on. It's a Friday, and yet you stayed the course, just like I was telling my council member to do just a moment ago. So thank you for doing that, despite the rough patches throughout the day. You're still here, and I appreciate you for making the time.
Yeah. Like I said, glad to be here. Definitely planned for a different venue. But as you know, when you're a lawyer, you got to think on your feet. Things don't happen as you plan them. So we got stuck behind a trial, and then they heard my case. But it was about 2 hours later than I had anticipated. So I do apologize, but just glad to be here. And the case did settle, so all's well.
All's well as it ends well, for sure. So thanks again. Appreciate that. I'm excited to chat with you. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do? I mentioned that you're a civil litigation attorney, so you actually sue people, right? You are you operate in the tort realm. Can you just tell people, I guess, what kind of law you practice and what your sort of day to day may look like?
So I'm with a general civil litigation firm. We handle everything from claim contract cases. We have a collections department. Most of those deal with commercial or residential leases. So we handle a lot of property management representation. We also have a side that does real estate transactions. Under the umbrella of our company, we have a title company, a rent court company. I told you about the collections department. Every now and then, I will take a personal injury cases. I do have a couple active personal injury cases currently, but that's currently what I'm doing. I've throughout my career done a lot of different subject matter areas, which I do take pride in. I know a little about a lot, so that's currently what I'm doing right now, and a little different than what I was doing previous to right now.
Yeah. So tell me, how did you decide to go to law school? You've had you're a pretty athletic guy. You mentioned we're sometimes gym partners. You've always been committed to sort of your physical fitness. I think when I met you, you were committed, probably even more so than I was back then. Probably because you're younger, but that's neither here nor there. But you're a former football player, former college football player. I think you
Mhm.
were a high school football player. You also played baseball. How did you get to becoming a lawyer? That's not usually our path, but here you are. How'd you get here?
So let me give you an abridged version. This is the truth. My father, I was about 13, 14 years old. My father was starting a nonprofit organization at the time, geared towards kind of the youth of the community in my small hometown in Ohio. We would travel to Akron, and he would get legal advice from a lawyer there about starting his nonprofit organization, information about a 501(c), etc. On the way there, he asked me, he said, hey, how are you going to make a living one day? And I told him I was going to be a football player. And he said, wrong answer. And so confused at the time, you put a lot of hours into, training and practicing. And I'm like, what's going on here? What am I missing? He asked me again. I said, I'm going to be a baseball player. He said, wrong answer again. So I consulted my uncle. He said, he's trying to, get you to, think outside the box a little bit. I originally told him I was going to be an accountant. So he said, okay, what's the next step? How are you going to further that? And so I ended up my freshman year of college or high school taking an accounting course. I lasted 7 days, realized accounting wasn't it for me. Um, he asked me the question again. I said, I'll give me some time. My uncle handed me his phone and he said, Google high salaries for professions. I said, okay. It came to me and there was, a list. And I said, well, you're going to see, a lawyer all the time. You're traveling an hour and a half to Akron, Ohio to see a lawyer. Why don't I be a lawyer? And so he said, that's a great idea. Fast forward, he somehow found a way to sign me up for mock trial when I was in high school. So I was doing mock trial and playing that football and playing baseball all at the same time.
Wow.
To be truthful, to be candid, I resented him for it for years. Um, and obviously now I look back and I thank him for challenging me, forcing me to deal with time management and getting into the legal profession. Mock trial was really the way I enjoyed it. I think the common denominator is competition. I'm a very competitive person,
Mm,
as you know. So football, baseball, the legal profession is adversarial. There's one
yeah.
side against another side, and so I think that the competition of mock trial, the competition of one side winning and one side losing, sometimes obviously there's a lot of settlement agreements once you get into the profession, but I think that's what triggered me is to I love this, I want to do this. Obviously at the time I had a lot of public interest goals, trying to change the world and help the criminal justice system and things like that. And that didn't necessarily pan out for me in the profession as of yet. But there were a lot of different things, and I think the competitive aspect of it, as well as the public interest influence that I could have in the profession, is kind of what got me into it.
Yeah, indeed, and there's nothing. I understand that there's nothing more impactful on a child's sort of success than a motivated parent, right? A motivated parent can like open doors, and I think I'm certainly a result of that myself. And I will say I've often shared in terms of my practice is that one of the things I love most is I like winning. And so that that helps with being a lawyer. Right? I like to win, and I think that is a common sort of denominator in the practice. You're right; it's a very competitive space,
Mhm.
and I think that's something that I think helps to motivate us, right? To do the work in addition to
Absolutely.
our license, right? So so I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you for that. So I want to know. I want to get into some of your sort of day to day stuff. What does it look like for you? I mean, you often are doing depositions and you're drafting complaints. How do you decide on a case that you're going to take and that's something that's sort of in your wheelhouse? How do you determine that for yourself?
So we take, like I said, we do specific subject matter areas. I am with a firm right now that does give me the latitude to take a lot of different cases. They give me discretion as to, okay, hey, is this going to be a case that's worth it or not? So most of the cases, like I said, are large claim contract cases, commercial lease disputes, breach of contract cases. And so, when those come in, we vet them. I like to say, when you get a case, um, when you hear about the case originally, it's the best that it's going to get. Cases get worse as the days go, as you learn more about the case, as you get through the discovery process, and you learn more about, okay, maybe this isn't the case that we drew it up to be. So
Yeah.
we do have a kind of diligent process of not only vetting the case, but vetting the person. I think a lot of people forget that the plaintiff or the parties in the case matter. Whether they're going to testify, whether it's their credibility, how they're going to be, how that lawyer-client relationship is going to be, means a lot. I've started to learn that over the years. So, sometimes it's vetting the case, but it's also vetting the client. And is this somebody that we want to bring in and that we want to represent, and that we want, the firm to be associated with? So it's mostly civil cases. It depends, on kind of what we're doing at the time. Sometimes, as I said, I'll handle a lot of property management representation. Last week I dealt with maybe 5 to 6 different real estate transactions, which is a little bit new for me. And I enjoyed that. I still enjoy learning in the profession. So it just depends. You go through it, you vet it, you review the documents, and then you make a determination as to whether you're going to sign them up as a client or not. And then at that point, they go through the intake process. We send out letters of representation depending on what type of case it is, and then we go from there.
Yeah, I would say that one of the things I've learned over the years that all money ain't good money, right? So just because somebody's got a case doesn't mean that I'm the right person for that case. So I think the vetting of the parties is certainly good counsel for those who are listening. So listen, let me ask you one of my favorite questions to ask. What's been your sort of most teachable moment in your years of practice? I think we've been practicing something like 5 years, 5 or 6 years, I think, at this point. What's been your most teachable moment, and what's been, would you say, what's been your like sort of highlight thus far? Something that's like, you know what, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
So to answer the last question first, my mind originally just goes to two different instances, and I'll be brief. One, I was just starting out at the first firm I was at prior to my second clerkship. So this was my first time actually in the profession. I was with a firm, and I brought a client in that was dealing with a non-compete agreement, a restrictive covenant. They were being sued by their former employer, essentially on allegations that they were stealing clients. And so, why it was important is because they were a very they would work out to be a good client for us if we got them out of this restrictive covenant. And so we thought that there were some roadblocks in the case. I did a little bit of extra research, and we ended up finding out that it was actually a non-solicitation agreement. This restrictive covenant was just dealt with solicitation, not with actually servicing the clients. It was a huge relief. It was kind of like this smoking gun moment that we had, and it was really just a product of extra research. Staying late and figuring how do we work out of this. That was a big win. They ended up being a client of ours for a couple years after that, so that was a huge moment for me as I
Wait,
was new in the profession.
and so just to be clear, that I think, as I understood it, that turned on, whether they couldn't solicit clients, but there was no restriction on actually like working for those clients. Uh,
Yes,
okay, so that really
the
meant I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah. So what it meant is they can't directly solicit, meaning they can't reach out to clients
Yeah.
that were previously that they were previously servicing or they were previously working with. But if the clients reached out to them,
Right.
they did nothing wrong. And so there was the language of the agreement, of the underlying agreement, was just poorly written, and we just took them on its face. They filed for an injunction. They filed a complaint, obviously, and we just took them at their word that this agreement was actually a restrictive covenant, and it was a non-compete.
I
And
see.
then I did a little bit of case law, and the wording was a little weird, and the judge ended up ruling that yes, this was a non-solicitation agreement, not a non-compete. Brought a
Right.
huge client in, so that was a win. I think the other part was probably my first settlement. The first personal injury case that I settled. Settling the case, turning somebody's adverse situation when it came into me into a situation that, okay, that's not that bad, and you know bringing somebody to justice, giving them money that they deserve for their injuries. That first personal injury case, and then obviously the payout thereafter. We're
Yeah.
here, obviously to make money, but obviously to help people. And so I think that was probably the other I guess instance that pops out in my career, is that first settlement, and helping somebody who thought that they were in kind of a lose-lose situation. That felt really good. The first time that I had a moment where it was extremely teachable, um, was, I think, being prepared for court. Uh,
Mm.
I there's often times in certain courthouses that a lot of judges do things the same way until you get the one judge that doesn't. And if you don't account for that, you can be, standing at the trial table, not looking very smart. And I think that I relied on this judge doing things the way they do in other courtrooms. I prepared that way. Or I guess it was a little bit more of a lack of preparation, because I'm thinking that,
Mm.
well, if they do what the other judges in the courthouse do, then I won't have to worry about that. And the time came, I had to worry about that. I have a client to the left of me, and I'm struggling, moving papers, trying to figure out what to do next. And it wasn't a good situation. It wasn't a good feeling. And I think that it really, showed me that preparation matters no matter what. You have to prepare. You have to know every single document in the file, and there's no shortcuts to lawyering. There's just
Mm.
none. And it seems obvious, but you get, you have 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 cases a week. Things get repetitive after a while. But you always have to pay attention to detail. You always have to be prepared. And so I think that was one thing that I definitely learned in the practice, was just you got to be prepared.
Yeah, and the hard way, no doubt, right? And some of the times, that piece about being prepared for that specific judge is something that they don't always teach, right? But that you've got to do because every judge is different and they're going to run their space how they run it, and it's not much you can do about that, right? You need to know how they operate and what they like, what they don't like, and sort of that being part of the preparation itself. Well, certainly good counsel there, and a lesson learned, and some great highlights too, because I think that is those sorts of things help, particularly helping people in downtrodden spaces, helping them get to a better space.
Of course.
There's no greater feeling than that, right? That's pretty good, especially when you get paid to do it. Can't beat that.
Yeah.
All right, so running a little bit out of time here, but I want to get to one of my sort of other big questions here, which I think is really important. And maybe you've actually touched on it a little bit actually already, but I want to give you the opportunity to answer it. If you had an opportunity to give yourself some counsel, your younger self some counsel, or some other young lawyer, some football player who may be thinking about going to law school, what would you say? What counsel would you give either to yourself or to that young kid out there who's on the way to where you are?
There it would be twofold. I think first would be seek out litigation experience. Um, at some point, be near a courtroom, work towards being able to litigate and try a case. I think that experience is valuable. It's transferable, and I know that there are a lot of employers in a lot of different subject matter areas that agree. So I would say definitely go after litigation experience. You may not want to do that long term, but if you do it on the front end, it's going to pay off on the back end. Um, Secondly, is I was told and I was advised that you should try out a lot of different subject matter areas of work and of the law while you're in law school for your internships and beyond. I think if I could go back, I would probably stick to one subject matter area of law. Now, obviously, it's hard selecting one, but I would probably have forced myself to pick an area of law, focus on that, tailor all my internships and my experience to that, focus on mastering that area of law, and then going from there. And I say that because I think that while I do appreciate my diverse experience and that I know about a lot of different areas, sometimes I think that it would have paid off better for me to have just stuck with one area of law and stuck in one lane. A lot of reasons why, but just I would tell my younger self to kind of trust the process on that, and I would advise myself of that.
I think that's good counsel. I often think about that, even for myself. And I would almost take a step back, and I would probably say, and I think, yeah, as you mentioned, it's hard to do, but it would be almost wise to have an area of law picked out even before you go to law school, right? Even before you pick a law school, because that
I agree.
can, yeah, that can inform your choice on where you go to law school, which can, uh, you know, be advantageous for you, right? Along the same lines as you mentioned, because certain law schools have different specialties. Although we all learn the law, uh,
Hmm.
some have a reputation and what do you call an alumni network, right, associated with a specific area of practice that more than others.
I completely agree. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with it either way. But I definitely think that having some type of plan or some type of interest specifically will dictate a lot of the decisions you make along the way. And so, like I said, I to each their own. At the end of the day, everybody has a different path. That's for sure. I know people who went into law school I'm going to be a public defender and that's it.
Yeah.
And they are 10 years in the profession and they have not tried one case, but they're doing great for themselves. And so, everybody has their own path, but I think definitely going into it with a plan of a specific area of law, I think it would help tremendously.
And I think the litigation advice is also really good, right? I think you're right there that there's nowhere and no field that you can get into that there is not a value in having some litigation experience, win, lose, or draw, right?
Agreed.
Yeah, good counsel there. All right, well, thanks. I am out of time. I really appreciate you sharing your story with us. You're a great attorney, great guy, and a good friend. So I appreciate you spending the time with us. Much appreciated, my friend.
Likewise, Brandon, I appreciate you. Appreciate what you're doing. I wish you the best, obviously, moving forward. And obviously, we'll keep in touch. I can tell the podcast, he is correct. We were lifting partners. We held each other accountable during law school. We stayed in shape together. And I even got you on the flag football field a little bit after law school.
Yeah, just a little bit. Not long.
Of course.
Not long, but a little bit.
Indeed.
All right, man. Thanks so much. Good times. All right, friends.
Absolutely.
We'll be right back with the wellness check. Have a good one. All right, friends. We are back. It's now time for our wellness check. Here it is. The greatest decision you ever make is deciding whether you live in a friendly or hostile universe. I'll read it again. The greatest decision you can ever make is deciding whether you will live in a friendly or hostile universe. Friends, this choice is uniquely ours and ours alone. Of course, we can't control the things that go on around us. And of course, there will be good days and bad days. There will be crisis. That is just the nature of life. But each of us has to make a decision, and we do make decisions about whether we will live in a hostile or a friendly environment. Those are the choices we make every single day by the people we hang around, the people we choose to engage with, and the work even that we choose to do. All right, we can make those choices. We do make those choices, whether consciously or unconsciously. And so I'm encouraging us in our wellness check today to be conscious about whether or not or which type of universe we want to live in. Do we want to be in a friendly universe or a hostile one? And I'm encouraging us to remember that decision starts with us and ends with us. Our own actions, our own behavior often determine that. So that's your wellness check today. Remember to live life in peace and not pieces. We'll be right back with our Apex Highlight. All right, friends, we are back, and it's now time for our Apex Highlight. I am super excited to welcome a new friend to the show. Her name is Erica Dunlap. She is owner of Erica Dunlap Photography and MajorBlu Studios, located right here in Memphis, Tennessee, in Whitehaven. She's got a keen eye for detail. She's a fantastic artist. She is a photographer and now moving into the art world. And I can't wait to talk to her about that. Erica, welcome to Lawyers. So glad to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So listen, I was reading a little bit about your bio. Can you tell us how you got into photography? I got to say, just a quick caveat. I used to really want to be a photographer. I still might be one in my second life. We'll see, second or third at this point. But there was a photography club in high school, and I was very interested in joining, but I never did. I'm interested to know how you decided to be a photographer, and how did you get into the field?
Well, first, I've always been a creative. So I started with spoken word, poetry, and writing. And a friend of mine at the time was doing photography, and she put a camera in my hand. And it's been that for the past 14, 15 years now. I've always loved fashion. I've always loved flipping through Essence magazine, watching the fashion fair, fashion shows my mom used to allow me to watch. and I was really, really captivated with the beauty of fashion and how someone could take a thought and translate it into something that a person would wear, and it would be art. So I started doing photography just to take pictures of things that I saw was missing from everything else. It was dominated in, in one thing. And I was like, I need to see people that look like me. So I started taking pictures to create my own version of what that was for me.
Okay. And so let me ask, did you do some sort of formal training? Did you go to school for this? Or is this just a knack that you have honed and perfected over the years?
It's been hard work. I didn't take any classes. I think I took one class in Atlanta, and it really just kind of let me know I knew what I was doing. Sometimes you have that fear and it's you blocking you. So that class just kind of let me know, hey, you knew to do that, but you were scared to do it. So taking that class gave me a lot of freedom to trust myself. So it's been trial and error. It's been picking up my camera. It's been shooting it. I don't like it, so I'm gonna move the light over here. And I've come up with my own little look to everything. I can't explain it. I'm not a technical shooter at all. I really go by, I know what I want in my head, and I'm thankful that I'm able to translate that with my camera.
Okay. Yeah, that is a beautiful thing to be able to do. I think it's important to know, right? Like sometimes you don't need formal training. You need passion, and you need a willingness to perfect the craft. And I think that certainly shows in some of your work. I see, and somehow, right. And you've been doing it now for 15 years.
Close to it.
And yeah. Okay. And so now you have, you're now expanding your platform a little bit. Can you tell us? There's this. You got this eye. I want to get this right here. This is you're moving into the visual abstract art space, right? Can you tell us what that is and how you sort of got to this transition? What is that? Well, let's just start with what is it? What is that? I can barely say it, but tell me what the visual abstract art space is.
Well, of course, we know realism in art, and that's where a person will paint you and you look exactly like you look in a picture. Abstract gives me a lot more creative space to be able to interpret things the way that I want to interpret them. They may not be correct. Your eye color may not be exact. Your skin may not be exact. The scene may not be reality. It's a beautiful thing to create your own reality. And that's what I do in art. And that's why I call it abstract.
Okay. So does that mean like you could do a portrait of me, right? Like you could do something like that and make me like, I don't know, like a superhero, a super lawyer, a super podcast host or something like that. You could actually change that and do something like that.
Yeah. It would be my interpretation of you as that. So it wouldn't be, someone just putting a cape on you. It would be what my interpretation of what that is for you. So that could be, you have a microphone sticking out of your head with a crown on it. It could be, it could be anything. It could be something to make your eyes look like you have a scene inside your eyes. So it's really about what your imagination can do and what you can translate with your brush and with your paint and with your photography.
Wow, that's really impressive. I'm excited about that. I may have to talk to you about that offline. So, can people commission you for projects like that, like what I just described? Like, could you, could someone say, I want a, picture for my birthday or something like that, and you could produce some sort of painting or something like that?
I've done one commission. I've actually only been painting since February of last year.
Wow.
So I'm leery about taking commissions. I'll take special commissions, people who understand that I'm going to paint what in my style. I'm going to paint, keep the creativity to what I want. A lot of times when people commission you, they see a picture of something and they want you to do exactly that. That's not what I do. So
Okay.
I'm very particular in my selection of commissions. I just finished my first one, and she just kind of let me do whatever I wanted to do. So that was helpful. But she did, give me some, direction. She had one specific thing that she wanted, and I was able to accomplish that. So those type of commissions, yes, I'll take those.
Okay, so you had quite a bit of latitude in order to bring to life your vision of what she. So she kind of gave you something, and you were able to kind of take it from there.
Yes.
That's pretty cool. I mean, she trusts you and your work, and obviously we see why you're a talented artist. So you say you just got into painting, though. So how did you make that transition to this abstract art world?
I had been working for my employer 20 years. I had contracted COVID after they brought us back into the office, and I ended up with a blood clot on my both sides of my lungs. I survived. I'm here.
Thank God. Yes. God be the glory.
It was an ordeal, and the stress, the anxiety, I just couldn't take it anymore. And I decided to retire. So after 20 years, I left my employer. It was a Friday, and on a Monday, I picked up a paintbrush and decided to see what I could do. So I started with abstract, just colors and textures on the canvas. And it just kind of birthed from there. I had already, during the pandemic, had started taking my photography and using it digitally to create art. And those pieces sold pretty well. They got into our art gallery locally here in Memphis. And then when I retired, I decided to see what I can do. A lot of times you tell yourself what you can't do. And because you tell yourself that, you can't do it. So I had told myself all my life that I couldn't draw, that I couldn't do these things. And a friend at the time challenged me and gave me a canvas and said, see what you can do. And I have been going nonstop since. So I've had one solo show, and hopefully I can have another one maybe by the beginning of the year.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, you are preaching a word on today. I think that piece that really touched me. It's like, sometimes you tell yourself you can't do it, and therefore you can't do it. And I think that's really, really true. And I think one of our motivational moments from the past is sometimes you have to do it afraid. Right. You may feel like you can't do it or that you're not qualified or whatever the case may be. And you're afraid, but that doesn't mean you don't act. You have to do it afraid. And I think that's something that I've had to adopt even doing this podcast. Right. It's just something that, you just got to do. Terrified. It's a lot of anxiety, as you mentioned. But it's required of you or of us, right, to do the scary thing. Sometimes that's how we get to the next level. That's how we expand. That we get to the space that we're supposed to be in.
That's one of the things I had to really give myself an opportunity is to realize that all the monsters that I'm afraid of, I created them.
Oh Lord!
So you're scared of something. Who told you to be scared of that? You did.
Yeah.
Who told you couldn't do this? You did. Who told you weren't worthy? You did.
Yeah.
So working through that, realizing, wow, okay, I can really do this because I said I can. So it's just been one of those things where I've just been kind of navigating, healing my own journey and my own thoughts about who I am and what I'm capable of. And that translated on my social media to me making these posts that I call Wanchy Wisdom, where I'm talking to me. And it may be, I might wake up one day and again, I'm standing in the mirror and I'm battling my own thoughts. And so I just put that out there. It may just be something as simple as, hey, watch your mouth when it comes to you. and people resonated with it, and then it turned into a whole thing, and people were sharing it and loving it. And then I created a t-shirt line around it, and it's just exploded to affirmations and manifestations, and realizing that you're not alone out here. There are a lot of people out here that feel the same way that you feel, and we all need support. And I do it with humor. I do it with, talking the way our aunties used to talk, and, bringing back the nostalgia of being able to not necessarily down a person, but give it to you the way you can accept it and it's digestible.
Yeah,
so
raw.
That's kind of, yeah. Sometimes you got to say it how you need to say it.
Yeah. I think that comes across, and I think it also. We are the uncles and aunties now, right? That's who we are. We're ascending into that role, and you do it so well. I got to say, your personality, your warmth, it certainly just comes across the screen. And I think it probably comes across in your work as well. I think that's part of the reason you just got a thing about you that comes across that makes folks want to hear you and listen to you. And so I thank you for sharing that. That's super dope. Okay.
Thank you.
Let me ask you, I want to ask a little bit more about this Wayne wisdom. Where did you come up with that? And have you actually had any backlash for, the name itself? Has there been any pushback from folks about that?
Actually, no pushback. I think this was a couple of years ago. I was talking to a friend. I was like, you remember, I heard somebody call them a wench. And I remember an auntie back in the day saying it. And as a child, you don't know what they're saying, and you don't know, what it means. So I started saying it in my posts, started using it as a hashtag. And people thought it was so funny. And people would get on the post and say, oh, my grandmother used to do that. My grandmother used to say that. And so that's what kind of spawned it. And now it seems to have caught on with a lot of other people. And I've had some people to try to, jack it, but I own the trademark. So it just kind of, it fit my personality. It fit who I was. And so instead of making it a negative thing, I wanted to spin it into something positive. And so that's where Wayne Wisdom kind of came from, is, instead of using the B word, which, I try not to use that word. We have other words that we can use that evoke more positive emotions. And Wayne was that for me.
Yeah, indeed. Well, I love it. Keep up the great work there. I'm looking forward to following you and getting some of that Wayne wisdom myself. I think it's value added to all of us, I'm sure. Let me move to some of my other questions. I want to get into just sort of, you've got a long career and also like some new career. So I'd like to know, what's been your sort of most teachable moment in your space? Where did you hit a space where you're just like, boy, you learned a lesson and I don't want to learn that again? And then on the other side of that, what's been your highlight? What's been something that sort of happened or that you experienced in your career that sort of lets you know you were on the right path?
Teachable moment. All of them have been pretty much around me trusting me and realizing that in the creative space, there are no mistakes. You can paint over it. I can take the shot again. I can switch the fabric up. I can do anything to fix it. There are no mistakes. There's nothing that I can't correct. There's nothing that I can't spin or take a new version of or a new vision of. Even if it feels wrong or if it's wrong in that moment, there was a lesson learned. So I feel like maybe seeing those moments as not mistakes and realizing that in order to get to my greatness, I have to have these trial and errors, and that's what they are. So I just don't think they're mistakes for me. I don't think that anymore. And as far as a win, I've recently, I've been pretty successful in selling art in such a short time. And I did have a really, really awesome purchase that I can't really talk about just yet. But that let me know that what I have to say artistically matters. No matter how, long I've been painting, no matter how little experience I have, there is value in what I'm creating because I'm creating it. I'm doing it. It's a part of me. So it just motivates me to keep going, not just to per se sell it to, a big person or to get a lot of money. It's been a very healing process for me to take my ideas in a different format besides photography and create something that people like. Like, oh, you like this. Okay, so I'm going to keep doing this. So, and it stretches me. It lets me know if I can do this, that means maybe I can do that. Yeah. So it's a stepping stone type of thing for me. So I think anytime I get up and decide to put brush to a canvas, it's a win.
Yeah, indeed. My goodness, that's some good stuff there. I'm rarely in a space where I'm just like, I think you're talking to me. Like, I want to just have you on the show just so you can talk to me. But I want to. Okay, I'm going to hold you to that. I want to move to my last question. I almost don't want to move to it because I want to keep talking to you, but I will ask. What counsel do you have for your younger self or for a young budding artist that's out there? And, while you do that, I want to apologize to the audience. I know my phone was ringing and yours is dinging. The people are trying to get to us today. It happens that way. We're high commodity. So if you're listening, that's not your phone. Those are our phones. We're sorry about that.
I apologize.
Yeah, it's okay. You're not alone here. So what's your counsel to your younger self or to some other younger budding artists out there who's trying to get to where you are?
It's ironic that you asked me that. I actually started writing myself letters, my younger self letters. Wow. And I also use social media to do that. And I call it Dear Black Girl. And one of the things that I could say that younger Erica needed was confidence. And I would tell Erica to not be afraid to be different. Not be afraid of the voice that you hear in your head because it's guiding you. Trust your voice, trust your vision, trust that you're capable because God wouldn't have given you the vision without giving you the tools to be able to make it so. So, yeah, I could tell myself, look, I got a list of things that I could tell myself, but I'm good. But that's it. That's it.
I'm very rarely speechless. I don't have anything else. Tell people how they can find you. How can we find you? How can we see your work? Where can we contact you? Maybe we want to hire you to take photos or maybe one of those special commissions where we leave you in charge. How do we get to you? Or how do we get to your Wayne Wisdom and all the wonderful things that you got? How do we find you?
You can find me at ericadunlap.com. You can find everything there. I do have a shop there. I do have my available original paintings and means for you to book your photo shoots. And ironically, a lot of my clients are attorneys. So I do a lot of headshots, a lot of branding for attorneys. So anything that you need, if you don't see it on my site, just hit the contact form and we can talk about it.
All right. Well, this is awesome. What a great conversation. You have really encouraged me today. I thank you for your work. All that you do, you just never know who you impact and what kind of space you have when you share it with folks. So thank you for sharing your story and your light. I mean, you're something special. So I'm excited to see what you're going to do next. Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, friends. Absolutely. We'll be right back with our motivational moment. Oh, friends, I feel like I need a minute. We don't even need a motivational moment. We could have we should have had Ms. Dunlap do it for us. But our motivational moment today is the rule of thirds. It's something I recently learned about, and I want to share it with you. It's the rule of thirds, and it applies whenever we're chasing dreams or doing something big. They say a third of the time you're going to feel good, a third of the time you're going to feel okay, and a third of the time you may feel downright crappy. And the important thing to remember, the motivational moment of it all, is that in the third of the time when you're feeling crappy, you got to still show up, still do the work, and live through the dip. The dip is only a third of the time. It's not going to last. Remember, I said this earlier this season that at the end of the day got to end from our good friend Glorilla. This is a little bit of a deeper dive in that. And so it shows us that there are going to be good days. There are going to be bad days. There are going to be okay days. Either way, we got to keep going. We got to keep our foot to the pedal. And just remember, if it's always good, we might need to reevaluate. Something ain't right, okay? Nothing is going to be always good. If it's just okay all the time, well, we may need to reevaluate. And if it's always crappy, we definitely need to reevaluate. The rule of thirds, I think, applies to everything that we do in life. And if it gets to the point where it's always good or always bad, then we may need to reevaluate. Maybe we're not pushing ourselves enough. Maybe we're not living in our true destiny or in our true calling. I don't know, because your true calling is going to cause you to stretch. Again, that's the rule of thirds. A third of the time you're going to feel good. A third of the time you're going to be okay. And a third of the time you're going to feel crappy. And you just got to remember during the crappy times that you got to live through the dip. Keep showing up, friends. That's your motivational moment. We'll be right back to wrap things up. All right, friends, we have done it again. I so appreciate you helping me to do this thing. Big shout out to my guests, Dunlap and sharing with us. We're grateful for the opportunity to speak with them both. Our Voyage Vibe today brought to us by Lunas Novia. The song is Lunas Nova. Lunas Nova is by Rod E. Thank you all for this vibe, and thanks to the Memphis Music Bank for making this happen. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Just like any voyage, it's a little bit more fun if you can bring a friend or two along. Lawyers is brought to you by Apex, where aptitude meets excellence. And brought to you and powered by the Green Law Firm, your one-stop shop for everything real estate in Tennessee and Mississippi. Guys, I'm so appreciative of you. Remember to email us your feedback and your questions. The email address is lawyerish@apexgroupdc.com. We love to hear your feedback and your questions. We get to them all. So we thank you for that. Thank you for your patience with me as we continue to do this good work. Thanks for making it happen. I'm just so grateful to be back in the mix and to continue to be in the mix with you. Hope you're getting some from this. I certainly am. Until next time, friends, be well.